Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussions. A piece of paper has been given to you, so if you have questions, just hand it over to our Spring Rain staff. Good morning to our panelists. Good morning. Okay, let me start with the first speaker. Sorry. Federico, Mr. Federico. How can other entities, such as us or our constituents, the PDOs, say collaborate with the UN, particularly the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees? So how can entities work together with United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees?
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah, indeed, in my presentation I didn't cover that topic, hoping that this was a question that was going to be asked during the panel conversation. I would say multiple ways. The way we work with the faith-based organization, the private sector and governments is through co-creation. It's through finding common grounds and win-win solutions. We can talk marketing, we can talk PR. We are humanitarian, but we have very strong and developed private sector team. So I would say that in a nutshell, whatever are your ways or thinking of working with the UN Refugee Agency, we are ready to listen. We go from traditional grants that you mentioned, Father, through very innovative solution like impact investments, or we call them innovative financing mechanism. For instance, since we're talking about faith-based giving, a year ago we announced the creation, together with the Islamic Development Bank, of a global refugee fund, Waqaf fund, which is Zakat compliant, Sharia compliant, where we aim to mobilize $500 million that can be collected by the Islamic Development Bank and then used not only by UNHCR, we are one of the founder of the fund, to be used and implemented wherever they're needed. So we have a whole spectrum from gifting kind, grants, cause-related marketing campaigns. So there are many different ways.
Thank you for that answer. By the way, hi staff. Good morning from Bangkok. Hi.
Hi, how are
Nice
you?
to see you again online. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. For Brother Prem, how is the experience of interfaith philanthropic collaboration in India? What are the challenges and successes in this area?
In India, the interfaith cultural dimension is actually growing. There is a constant evolution of coming together, the faith-based organizations. The church is taking a great lead to bring the different religions together for the common good. And every religious conference that we have, the Conference of Religious in India, is taking a lead along with the CCBI in India, the Catholic Bishops Organization, which is very actively participating in bringing these forums together to make sure that they work for the philanthropy of the human good. And there's a lot more transformative change to be done. We are in the process of assessing the impact that so far the church has done in India, and further what more things to be done in the course of time to make sure that these collective efforts of interfaith religions can make a world of difference to the people who really need of our help and support.
Thank you, Brother Prem. I have a question here for Mr. John Fernandez. What specific challenges do philanthropic organizations face during ISO certification? To add to that, I'd like to ask also the challenges. What are the challenges have you undergone or faced in installing systems to organizations?
Very good question. Designing and developing it is easy. The challenge basically there is on the results. So ISO is audit-based. You'll be audited for results. You can easily map processes, controls, put in place some risk identification and mapping, but really it boils down to the result. Boils down to results. So when we speak of results, you have to go back to where you started. What's the KPI? What's the key metric here? Like amount of fund raised, how do you measure impact? No, because there are three basic criteria there in certification. Number one is adequacy of the system, meaning is it adequately documented? Second is conformity by everybody to the system. Like Dr. Glenda is saying, you trust the process. And so in order for us to really see results, you have to conform to it. That's why there's an audit function to that. And finally is the effectiveness. So the challenge for philanthropy is to really show results at the end of the day. So it's about we agree on a scorecard and are we hitting these numbers, and it's like an engine. So is the engine running and running smoothly, that is. So it really boils down to the result, yeah.
Okay, thank you. While you're at it, is it a requirement for all PDOs to be ISO certified eventually? So the word there is a requirement, and I also like to ask Dr. Glenda to answer that. You first.
Maybe after.
Okay,
Hello,
so
after me, you can follow. Hello. Okay, so the thrust of SRG is to make you uniquely positioned to be the biggest funders ever for the great work you can provide for humanity. And in order for you to significantly have a brand in our ecosystem, we're moving towards doing an ISO for human capital. And I was talking to Jong also, and he mentioned that an office with its standard processes can also be ISO certified, the office in itself. So that is why the capacity building journey's first step is to ensure that the processes are in place. Now, every PDO has a different structure. There's no one box structure. An educational institution has a different setup. A school, a hospital has a different setup. NGOs have different setup. But we have a common ground of framework, which is the 6-pillar model. What we will do is to design different frameworks per category and do an accreditation process as well on each of this sector. And this is just for an internal excellence from within. What we will do in the SRG Foundation is to map our brand to the donors, that without saying anything, if there is a PDO, you're taken care of. So you carry that brand along. And that's the purpose why we're bringing in Mr. Jong Fernandez, because he will put the structure for the system of how this accreditation would work. And this is also for the good of everyone, because one of the measure again is funding, but for funding to keep coming back, you have to have good report and KPI and everything else. And all this capacity building we're doing is actually leading to that area. So the standardization in itself is essential so that if there's a biggest turnover of people, you don't have to worry when someone leaves, or if father is assigned to another position and the next priest comes in to handle the office, all he has to do is to continue the system, especially for the church that is driven by problems on succession. The problem of the church is also the agenda of the bishop or the provincial or whoever, so that the people on the ground, the communities, will not be affected by the delays of leadership decisions. And maybe, Jong, you can affirm if what I'm saying can be possible, but as to the requirement, and for SRG, yes. Especially with the capacity building journey, the end goal of that 3-year support is by the time we reach 3 years, we all will be at that level where we become more competitive, or not really competitive, but amplified in the voice of the funder, so we can enter in any of the different organizations we want to partner. John, maybe you can.
I completely agree. You know, so just for context, when we were doing what we're doing at the early stages, two things could only happen. And number one is that folks in the organization will start worrying, oh no, we're putting systems and processes and structure, maybe we'll get fired because they wanted to just document everything and they can get rid of us. And the second scenario is, okay, so this is a lot of work and really bottom line is nobody want to do it. No? So what we do as far as systems, no, international standardization is concerned, is that we do not evangelize about it. We work with organizations who are really serious and whose intention really is to achieve results, no, to say the least. And just to connect to what Dr. Glenda is saying, the value there is really for the funders and other stakeholders, because when they see your PDOs certified to a global standard, they know right away that you're not doing things randomly. You have structure, you have policies, you have protocols. You don't do guesswork. And so, in other words, you have a good chances of consistency in delivering results and, of course, providing impact. And that's exactly what they look for. So when they see you have the seal of good governance, so similar to what the government is doing, it increases credibility. You know, so you don't have to really explain yourself. And through that, I think support would just flow in naturally. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez, and thank you, Madam. Hi, staff. Hi, yeah. Okay, you can hear me. So I'd like to
Yes,
ask,
hi.
yep. I'd like to ask you, how has philanthropic capitalism impacted the world of philanthropy on a global scale?
Well, I mean, it's amplified it on the onset, but I think what it's done is it's also shifted the receiving party, or the charity, if you will, and really made them more of a partner in the process, because they are a big part of the process. So it's gone from this top down, like, okay, I'm the funder and I'm going to give to you and I'm going to have you do what you want to do, to really creating a collaboration and understanding everyone is needed. So philanthropic capitalism has done that. In addition to that, it's also kind of taken out, because it's created it more like a business. There can be like an impact investing and other endeavors like that. There can be returns. So it creates that circular economy within philanthropy as well, where there is money being made off of your efforts in some cases, not all cases, in which case you are creating more funding and you're amplifying that, you're exponentially, you're growing it. It's not just something where someone is giving and it's consumed. It's something that is being grown. So there's a lot of different things that go into it, which make it very wonderful. And it speaks to being able to help more people the more that we are able to continue to make the funds grow bigger.
So, in other words, are you saying that funders are also looking out for the sustainability of the donees?
Absolutely. Sustainability is the key. It's the credibility, sustainability, it's a long-term commitment. It's making sure that you solve the problem, and that's what they're really after. You're not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. They're looking for solutions, even if it takes some time. They want to be working towards that.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess that is really philanthropy, solving the root cause of the problem. Yep. Thank you, staff. Thank you. Okay. For Father Lord, to apply for grants to the organizations you mentioned, is it a must to be a Catholic or religious organization, or corporations are welcome?
It depends on the donor. Most of the donor organizations are very specific on whom they fund, and in their website they also publish that. If you are going to a Catholic donor organization, they normally fund organizations which are connected with Catholic religion, dioceses, congregations in their provinces or their generalates. They don't fund individuals, that's for sure. Do they fund corporations? It depends on what type of a corporation. If it is a secular corporation, they may not use a pastoral fund.
Okay.
So, Catholic pastoral agencies would fund congregations and dioceses, whereas Catholic secular organizations or Catholic organizations that fund social projects, they also fund non-Catholic NGOs, because they see that only the name Catholic is not there, but the values are similar.
Yes,
So
agree.
when another organization belongs to another religion or a secular organization is able to bring out the gospel value, there is nothing wrong in funding them. So there are many funds going to organizations which are not Catholic, and for me it is a pain. When we have so many Catholic organizations which are in need of funds, which are doing excellent work, we are not able to articulate that clearly. So Catholic social organizations are looking for other NGOs for funding, leaving out Catholic organizations.
So it is a possibility. It can be done, right?
It can be
Yeah.
done, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Father. Yes, Madam.
I'd like to add on the spectrum of sources of funding. Of course, when we look at the donor side, we look at where the key source or the match, no? But think of it like there's a broader spectrum. So you focus on that aspect and then don't ask things that are not aligned. Because you only get frustrated pushing something that's not even, Father, no? If for example, if there's a right match for corporates, then go for corporate foundations. Because the problem with many of the organizations that I have witnessed is you got to bark in the wrong source, and you wait, and then obviously it's really not eligible. But you still submit and, take our chance. There's no chance if there's not in the list. In the same way with AVPN, it also goes like that. There's a thematic area, there's a specific component that when they get to receive it, it's not SWAC, because that's also for the purpose of the funders to make it easy for them to pick. Because from the list of people who submitted, they will have they will filter, and then from those that really fits, that's when they really have to approve. So it's very critical that the PDO officer or the team should have that critical skill to not just send and not, because that's been a problem, Father, no? Wrongly waiting for something that's not going to happen. So we have to be more logical and directed, I suppose, yeah.
No, I agree with what Madam Glenda is saying. We don't have time. We cannot waste time in sending an application and waiting to the wrong agency. So do a lot of research and find the right agency, or do consultation with people who know about it. Then you will be able to send to the right agency for the right funding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Father. For Federico again, what difficulties and challenges have you encountered in dealing with faith-based organizations? And do you have some advice to the groups present here on how to effectively work with the refugees?
Nice question. Of course, there are challenges, but I like to see challenges like opportunities, because working with faith-based organization is working with organization with different ways of understanding the universe, the way of working, and to match the way we operate to the way that the other organization operates is not always immediate. So, for instance, creating a Zakat funding, it was a lot of learning, it was a lot of research, because we needed to create like a mechanism which was compliant to the rules of organizations. So we had to create a Zakat compliant fund in accordance to all the fatwas, all the Sharia rules. There is a lot of learning, a lot of speaking with the imams and the experts. So there is a long learning process. There is also capacitation of our staff and our people, because funding comes with rules and regulations. for instance, zakat funding, they need to be 100% donated to the beneficiaries and only to a certain class of beneficiaries. So for us to adopt an organization that is serving 117 million people and say, okay, we need to identify people who are Muslim, who are fit under the 4 categories of zakat eligible. There is an additional learning that must be done, and that applies to all the different faith-based organizations. Majority here I can see are Christians or Catholic. We do work a lot with. Actually, Caritas, many Jesuitic organizations are implementing partners of UNHCR, so we work together, and International Red Cross. So it's a lot of mutual learning. The second part of the question was about?
What is your advice to the groups here on how to effectively work with refugees?
When I talk about the refugee topic, I usually say they are the most excluded, the most vulnerable. And actually, something that we usually say is that SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are never going to be achieved if we don't focus on refugee education, for example. That's the last mile. They are the most difficult to reach. You need to imagine scenarios where people are left with nothing in a country where they don't speak the language, without a job, not being allowed to work, not being allowed to access the national health system, not being allowed to go to school, not being allowed to have a bank account, not being allowed to have a mobile phone. I'm not making it. That's the real case. So I would say research, depending on what are the objectives of your respective organization, the countries where you operate. We have a footprint of 140 countries. In some countries, we have a better PR and a better presence than in others. We are not always a welcome or a popular partner to work with. So do your analysis. We might not be your best fit in your country for whatever reasons. What I can say that we are there, we stay, we deliver, like we did in Afghanistan in 2021 when the Taliban took over the country and many left. Our High Commissioner, he was very bold in saying we stay and we deliver, no matter the embargoes, no matter because there are millions of people in dire needs. And the people of Afghanistan don't have why they should pay the price of the conflict that others started. So when you look for impact, if there is a match with your organization and ours, not only ours, there are many UN agencies as good as ours. I would say you do your proper research, and if you see the fit, reach out.
Thank you, Federico. For Brother Prem, are there social movements or programs from the government, NGOs, or faith-based groups in India that are working toward inclusion? If so, please give examples.
There are a lot of groups in India which do advocacy in different domains. I give you a recent example that happened. We had a general elections, and one of the speaker also was speaking. We had recently general elections in India. Which is one of the biggest, celebration of democracy, where all the secular parties, members, especially the religious, for the first time they came out to promote and propagate a secular party or secular leaders that safeguard the values of the Constitution, which was never the time where the advocacy for policy making for the political leaders ever happened in India. The prior to 2024, April, May. We were always playing a back role. There was a time that the religious across India, right from the bishops, from the cardinals, from the lay faithful, we felt that we need to take a leadership, conscientizing people to make sure that right people should be there at the helm of affairs so that the policy making will be in a right manner so that the secular fabric of India is being protected. This is one recent example that I can give, and we are also part of the team who is with me in India, also very much part of this We have gone through national consultation team. We have trained the people to make sure that they use their franchise for the right persons. This is one thing. The other thing is in India is a place where the people agitate if there's something is not okay. There is no more fear of, okay, something can happen, because the people are well educated, well aware of their rights, well aware of their disposition, where they can demand for their rights. The governments are also very conscious before they take any decision. So the platform in India is quite open for people to raise their concerns, come together as groups to fight for their rights, so that the government hears and the right policies are made at the parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Hi, Steph. Hi again. I'd like to ask you, Steph, in your experience as a financial consultant, how important is data and the transparency of the funds that was received, and the importance of the impact report?
It's at the top of the list. I mean, it really does. It establishes yourself as, giving you credibility. It establishes you as being able to carry out something and show results. I mean, part of what philanthropy has suffered from historically has been people have given and there's no results no tangible results that are given back. It's just gone on faith, if you will, that it's gone to where it needs to go and it's making a difference because someone says it is. People aren't relying that anymore because unfortunately there have been circumstances where it just hasn't gone to the right hands or the intended hands or what have you. So having that data to show, not only be accountable for where the funds have gone to, but to show the impact that they're having and then the long-term effects of it is imperative and paramount. So it's at the top of the list. And that's why when Glenda talks about data, when we talk about putting together systems, when we talk about creating a philanthropic infrastructure, that shows our ability to perform in what we do in our business of mission, as I was saying in my presentation, it's so important because now you've set yourself apart. Now you've shown yourself to be an expert. And even if you make a mistake, because of the way that you're set up, people are going to be more apt to come back to you because they know that they have that transparency and they know, that everything is accounted for. So that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you, Steph. You want? Yes, sure.
I can't help but just a rejoinder. In most organizations we work with, whether NGO or private entity, yes, they can show data, and they all have this in data sheets, statistics, bar graphs, and all that. But when you conform to the ISO standard, what really is, it was really very pointed out. What's important there is the analysis, which we notice is sometimes lacking. So if it's 80%, what does 80% mean? What's the story behind it? And so the analysis is also a very crucial part of the numbers that you capture, in the PDO. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. While you're at it, I'll just throw the next question to you. What is your advice to the organizations who have yet to pass the standards of the SWD and PCNC? What more the standards of ISO?
So passing the ISO certification is easy, I would say. It's the maintenance which is the challenge. So in 3 months, you can actually conform to the requirements. All you need to do is to demonstrate that you have implemented systems thinking, the circular implementation of the way you do things, from planning it, implementing it, auditing it, and improving it. And So you generate evidences like your SWOT analysis, the mapping of interested parties and needs, the KPIs that you have set, the policies, objectives, targets, and the internal audits. That's easy. The sustainability is the challenge. No? So, because when you're certified to ISO, the certification is valid for 3 years, meaning you undergo annual surveillance audit and have it recertified in the next 3 years. And so that means you have to think long term. If you're doing this now, what's the impact down the road 5 years or 10 years in the implementation or the life cycle of the PDO? So I would say with the right guidance of SRG and the capacitation of how you do it, I think it's doable. No? So just lastly to share, one of the common mistakes in implementing ISO is that the organization tend to document everything. It's not really the case. So you choose what are mission critical processes, so to speak, based on your SWOT analysis, and you focus there. You can have 2 or 3 KPIs and that's it. You don't have to measure everything because you could not also measure everything, right? What do they say about really focusing on things that matter, but sometimes those things that really matter also couldn't be measured. So, but whatever that is, focus on those top 2 or 3 and make sure that it's the results achieved by your system. Yeah.
So it's just saying that focus on those that are measurable. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
And critical.
And critical. Measurable and critical. Please remember that. Okay. Dr. Glenda, how long should it take from PDO sign-up time to complete the 7-pillar training? And what is the direction of Spring Rain Global in standardization of capacity building? The 2 questions.
There is no box answer, but the sooner you get your team formed and the sooner you give the time for both parties, because also from our end, there's a lineup of schedules already. But we're working towards getting the team so we could address everybody needing help. But 3 to 6 months, 3 months to form your team, and you go finish the boot camp. It's the fundamentals first. It's the one day, it's a 7-day boot camp, but you implement that in the next 1 year. So you have to just get started with the people. The challenge that we're working out right now that delays the process is there's one person maybe or few doing the trainings, but they're not yet the person implementing. So it's different when you're coaching someone and the other person is the one implementing. So that's why there is a need, Jong, for fund so they can hire people. That's the purpose why we are urgently plotting the right coaching process and implementation process of capacity. So the direction of SRG is that in 1 year, many things can happen, short and long term. There are short-term goals, there's also long-term goals. But we won't sacrifice the short-term gain for the long-term goal. You get what I mean? Hindi tayo nagmamadali. We don't hurry, but we don't waste time. I know that a lot of you are saying that, Spring Rain might be so busy, but in our busy time, you also should be busy. I don't think you will wait for that time because there's a lot to prepare, I tell you. In program development, you need to map your advocacies. We won't dictate the advocacy they would need, right? You have to enable that and do synodality and listen to the community, because in the 7-pillar, what Spring Rain actually expected from everyone who wants to do philanthropy is the program pillar is done already. But chances are, even in program pillar, there's a lot of coaching, Jong, on theory of change, logical framework. So unless that advocacy is done, it would be difficult also to get fundings done. So there is a role that you have to play also, and a role that the capacity building will play. But timeline, 3 months, form the team, make sure you finish the 7-pillar, and then get it implemented with initiatives, and let the installation keep going. And there's an evaluation also and monitoring. But we are finalizing and standardizing the KPI. Once I get to put all these pieces, that's why I am asking for those of you to bring in your implementation program journey for capacity building, because all of that will be put in one lump KPI, and that's when I will sit down with Jong and Dr. Philip to plot the standards. Because what's good about this, Jong, is it's customized and realistic on the ground, because it's different from business. The only thing in this is you have unlimited requirement. Business has a ceiling. Maybe business expands, but for philanthropy, your needs are growing and growing and growing, and it's unpredictable sometimes, especially when calamity happens. Like Father Ray was saying, he was showing me the video, and then if there's calamity, another advocacy gets affected if you are limited with your resources. And then it becomes a problem again. So you have to learn to navigate. So your advocacy should be very clear. You cannot have all also solving the problems of the world. But you have to be clear about your charism, your direction. If you're in youth, be excellent in youth. That's all it takes. If you're with and so on and so forth. So we're excited to navigate with everybody else. And on the side, we're also brewing our organizational capacity to deliver as well from the consulting end.
Okay, thank you, Madam. I'm down to my last 3 questions. This just came in, and I'd like for Dr. Glenda, Father Lord, and Miss Stephanie to answer this. How will donor fatigue be avoided by funding donors for PDOs? I think in any organization for that matter. Or is there a thing as donor fatigue? Father Lord.
Okay. See, we talk about donor fatigue when we talk about individual fundraising. But donor organizations usually don't go for donor fatigue, because they would like to work with organizations that are committed, that are able to bring good results, and they would like to continue with the next project. Like I had an example with Miserior. We did a project in 2012, and they renewed it in 15, 18, and 21. So when the project is good, they can go on funding. That doesn't mean every organization is like that. There are organizational regulations that they may not fund after 2 times, or they would take a different project from that. What's important is a good relationship with the organization. So that will keep on working, and in general, there is no donor fatigue in organizational side, because the organization has established a good relationship with you. Maybe 1 or 2 years you don't have projects with them. Next you present a project, they will receive. Usually it works like that in the organizational sector. But in the individual sector, it's different, and I would ask others to comment on the individual sector.
Okay, thank you, Father.
There is no such thing as donor fatigue. Donors will never get tired of giving. Why? Because they are blessed. What donors just feel tired is the manner of the way we are asking. So I think we just have to improve the way we relate with them, so they get inspired even more.
Yeah, in systems thinking, if the donor is fatigued, you go to the next donor and ask the question why he is fatigued.
It's a good one.
Or maybe do not consider it fatigue if the donor didn't give. Maybe it's not just the right time for the donor. The donor may be in a situation. But the problem with us is we name, like, we describe like we know what's happening with the donor. For me, I ask if this might be the perfect time. Timing is important. So all donors are givers, and once they start giving, they always will continue to give. Yeah.
Steph, can you add
I
to
would
that?
just add to the I would add to the conversation, know the motivation of the donor. You always need to know how someone is motivated to give or do anything in life, for that matter. When you can speak to that root, you'll understand why or why not they're giving. If you understand that about them, you will understand the circumstance. And I mean, Glenda's right. There could just be circumstances. The economy could have changed. Their business could be going through trouble. You don't know that personal side of them. However, in addition to that, their motivation. If their motivation was they were planning to see something be done that wasn't done yet, or they're not seeing the results, or you haven't extended gratitude in the way they wanted to. It could be a number of things. I could go on and on and on. But in that implies their motivation. So understand what motivates them, and then you will understand why you're facing that circumstance.
Okay, thank you so
And
much.
adapt.
And adapt. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay. My second to the last question, how can UN help our internally displaced people like the indigenous people and fishermen displaced in the seas? Do you have current programs for that? Indigenous peoples and displaced fishermen?
Well, we would need to see the context and the country, but I would say that internally displaced people, which by definition are people that are moving within their country, are a population that we are supporting. For
That's good.
instance, okay. Informal, yeah. For instance, case of Ukraine, half of the country is currently under attack or invaded. There are people who decide to leave their houses and to move within Ukraine to safer places. This is an area where we support. Of course, those are people under our mandate. Or Pakistan, huge floods every monsoon season, actually. In Pakistan, there is a huge population of Afghan refugees, but natural disasters affects everybody. Those people are forced to leave their houses or their shelter to find safety to dry areas, for example. We do support them. So I cannot answer specific about fishermen and the indigenous population, but in general, when there is a factor that is causing the displacement, being climate change, being a conflict, being a war, we do support. If the government is allowing us to, if we're invited to support, because at the end we are a UN agency, so we always work in coordination with local authorities. It's for the local authority to say, we don't have the capacity to respond to this natural disaster, please, can you help? But we need that invite to work. It's not that we can just step in and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
And,
Father.
maybe I shall reformulate the question so that it can be more relevant for the PDOs. In a particular case, is it possible for UNHCR to work through a PDO? Because they are present in that place. Can you fund them and they do the work? Is there a provision like that?
So we do work with a lot of international NGOs and organizations, and we call them implementing partners. So when there is a match between our mandate and our scope in the specific region or state or country, and the partner is aligned with the way that we work, we do have that. I mean, that's the way we operate. If we look at the context of Bangladesh, in Cox's Bazar there are thousands of NGOs working with us, and together with other UN agencies we coordinate the efforts, other international NGOs. I think that there is a speaker from Save the Children later, so it's one of the partners that we work together, and they are in the lead actually of certain activities. But our role is to put together, because you need to imagine a place like Cox's Bazar is the biggest refugee camp in the world, 1 million people, and you somehow need to coordinate everything from the waste management, the electricity, the health system, the education system. So we need to take the overview and to make sure that the aid is delivered in the best possible way, And then there are thousands or hundreds of NGOs working together in coordination with us to ensure that the best NGO in delivering water and sanitation system can do it in the best possible way. If not, it will be like hundreds of people coming in and overlapping and not working our line way. So that's the role where we come in. So I think we are talking about the cases specifically in the Philippines. We do have an office in the Philippines. For whoever has the question, we're happy to make the contact, and you can have more conversations with them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our last question is for Mr. Fernandez. How can certification and accreditation be simplified and friendly to the PDOs? You just smile. You just smile to be friendly.
Can I have 5 days? I'll simplify it. No, kidding aside. I think Miss Stephanie really nailed it. No, when she mentioned about just ask why. No, so well, to simplify ISO, just ask why. Why you're doing it? What's your intention? So and why are you existing as a PDO? Why? Just ask why. And the second question, of course, is now that you're clear with the why, go to how. How are you going to do it? So you're going to put in structure, like I said, controls, etc. And who's going to do it? You know, so and then measure it, and then you go back to the why again. In one of the organizations we've worked with, there's this financial institution somewhere in Hong Kong, and it's high risk, and so their how is like this. Their how is, so they have tellers, frontline people. This is their how. Stand up, take 3 steps to the left, open the 3rd drawer, pull out the slip from the red envelope, and transfer it to the brown envelope. And you'd be surprised. Is that how they do it? And it's because it's a high risk. It's a high risk process. It's a high risk environment. So, but the point there is that they do understand the why, and they could answer the how to do it. There's no guesswork. Nobody in the organization is asking how to do it. And so, who will do it? That's the next most simple thing to do. And then finally, ask yourselves if you're successful with the why, the how, the who, the when, and the where. We're all familiar with the 5W and 1H. And for you to remember 5W and 1H, it stands for others, 5 wives and 1 husband. So, but kidding aside, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, how are you going to do it, where, when, who, and you'll never go wrong. No? So all the rest basically is just supporting it with documentation, and that's the least important part. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. And thank you so much. You want to answer, Father? Okay. Thank you so much. That ends our panel. But before we go, I'd like to ask you for your key takeaway for your sharing this morning, starting with Ms. Stephanie. Your key takeaway, please.
My key takeaway this morning is just I'm in awe of being among all of these people on the panel and how everyone is contributing to the greater philanthropic effort and making sure that we are armed with so much yummy information and systems, processes, and support. And I hope you all feel the same way, because there's a lot of support, there's a lot of love in this panel and in this room that's being thrown at you to make sure and to help you in your journey and with your success.
Thank you, Steph, and nice to see you again. Father Lloyd?
I would like to say that working with philanthropy is a bit different from working in projects. The people in the philanthropic development offices should understand this. When you raise funds from individuals and corporates, it's very different from working with the donor agency through projects, grants to receive from them. The process looks very similar. It is similar, but it is distinct and different. So being a PDO doesn't necessarily give you the projects. You need to further train yourself and restructure your PDO in order to get grants and funds. That way, if you do, it will be more successful in getting the grants side.
Thank you, Father. Federico?
Well, I mentioned at the beginning of my intervention, and I will say it again. I love to see the atmosphere of the room, the willingness, the interest on the topic. That's the way they take back with me. So much growing interest on faith-based organizations, on philanthropy, and the interest of standardizing, formalizing, and growing the way of doing it through organizations like, for example, Spring Rain Global. That for me is like, wow, great. That's great to hear and great to see. And the last point is somehow confirming this alignment between what you do and what we do in so many possible ways. And also thank you for the other speakers, very interesting, all your speeches, and now I know much more about the Philippines and the work done in India, and so thank you also for that.
Thank you, Brother Pram.
My takeaway from the whole interactions, all of us who are here has got immense potentials to contribute. I think let us put our hands together along with a wonderful ecosystem of SRG to create a lasting impact across the world and to create a just society and just world, so that we make a place for the humans to live in a better place, in a better conditions. And we love to see the team in India here. The Indian flag should come along with other flags, next the next SRG conference.
Hopefully,
So
hopefully.
thank you.
Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, Dr. Glenda, thank you for having me here. And, it got me thinking. I once dreamed of becoming a priest. And I could only last 3 years in the seminary. And, talking about circular, coming full circle, now I'm back here. I so admire every one of you. You're doing God's work. And like Dr. Glenda mentioned, there's no accident, so maybe it's also God's way of asking me again, John, we need you to help us with God's work. So, it's truly an honor. It's truly a pleasure. And we're talking about really important impact here, changing the world, solving the most serious problem. And if we're looking at those results, reliable results can only come from reliable systems. And so I would encourage you all to start building your systems one process at a time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Reliable results, reliable system. Dr. Glenda.
I just want to assure you all that having to come up with a conference is not just inviting these guys because they are speakers. In Spring Rain, speakers become our collaborators. So we will be diving in with Father Lord to make sure the grant proposals are there. We would learn from Federico, because refugees is also in analogy to what's happening, for example, in the Philippines with informal settlers, with the indigenous peoples. What he has mentioned is a model that you can follow, that if it's done like a refugee setup, it's no difference when somebody is displaced from calamity as well. How do you ignite everybody else to work together? Rotary has to also collaborate. We have the governors here, and I'm sure they have a good leadership to put the pieces together as well. But to everyone in this room, there is nothing happening by accident. Take advantage of time, take advantage to collaborate, and don't just end your momentum here. When you go back home, meet with your team, and let's get this going. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our panelists. A big round of applause, please, for them. It is now time to present the plaque of appreciation.